Welcome everyone to the commercial, and thanks very much to Non-Art Fair for hosting this as part of the online viewing rooms. I'd like to introduce myself and my guests here today. I'm Amanda Rao, I'm the director of the commercial in Sydney, and we're at the gallery physically for this online event. And next to me is Bonita Bub, and Jude, two artists from Sydney, both artists we have their work on our viewing room for Melbourne Art Fair. Bonita's are the blue painting carrier sculptures, and Jude has a series of paintings. Now, the third artist who's a part of our stand is Agatha Gothe-Snape, with two works, a wall painting and a series of Microsoft PowerPoint works. Now, a few things, those works don't exist physically until they're installed, so we don't actually have them here today, but I'll refer to them a bit later. And Agatha is not here with us today, but will speak about her work as part of the stand. So when we decided to do this event with the artists, of course the question came up as to why these three artists work together for the stand, and which is a fair enough question. I guess putting together the works, there are definite decisions made, which are non-commercial ones, which are more curatorial considerations and things that work together well aesthetically and conceptually, and things that feel right in space. It's the original works that are conceived for the physical fair, which translate the whole thing without change, any changes actually, online, which I think still works really well, even though we're dealing then with things which are very physical, both physical and non-physical. So coming into some kind of theme in the conversation, I was wanting what is the relationship between works, or what might be and what the thread throughout the group of works might be. And one thing I thought might be an entry point is so one thing which I thought would be an entry point is a question of objects in space, artworks in space, also spatial relationships within artworks, and that they can exist and do exist, I think, in these three artworks on all different levels and in interesting interconnecting ways. And I guess I'm going to have to go back to the iPad. It's a bit unfortunate, sorry. If we were a little bit more technically set up, we would have done this, share this on screen. I'm hoping it's visible. Let's see. So this is actually a wall painting. I'm going to have to hold it up to the screen. It's a pretty low tech effort. A wall painting by Agatha Gothe-Snape called Agnes's Gate, which consists of a black, it's 6 meters long and 2.5 meters high. So it's a very architectural work about architecture and about the individual, and it is initially, I would say, it's a self-portrait. The proximity of Agatha's name to Agnes is too close to ignore, but also I'm interested in it as the way an individual, where it can just be in the world without looking at art yet, encounters a doorway, a threshold, moves through a space which both lets you through and stops you from going through. As well as the gate, a hinging gate, there is a piece of paper with a folded corner, which represents maybe potential language, maybe an artwork. It's more conventional support for an artwork than a gate is. Anyway, so I'm just going to set up this image of Agatha's wall drawing as an entry point into talking with Jude and Bonita about their works. Does that make sense? So I kind of want to be interested in a way that we as human beings in the world experience objects spatially, we negotiate them physically and emotionally. It's not a mutual experience. And I guess I wanted to think about that. Spatial things like geometry, but also how it might affect other aspects of experience.
Well, it's no small question, but I think at the moment, I suppose it's the navigation of domestic space and domestic objects and like what's proximate in that sense. I mean, when I look also at the 3 words and I think of the 3 lines, I sort of have to start with the simpler commonalities that I see, like whether it's a gateway which has inherently a grid, and like my work, which is like a painting carriage, usually would not have actually a painting in it, but now really happily houses and frames Jude's work, which in turn has the milk crate. I think they're like a series of grids. I mean, it's not for me that's like the starting point, but in terms of like relationships and objects in psychological impact, maybe you can speak more to that. Because for me, it's like, my work is an object, and now it's online, so the relationship is inherently different. Like what I've experienced with somebody else right now, how they experience the mind.
Can I just interrupt? So I won't dominate the talking. I've set up a few frameworks, but just to talk about your work in general terms. So Bonita is a sculptor who makes elevated replicas of industrial objects and furniture. So the blue sculpture behind us here is her work. And do you want to talk about that? Just describe what it is.
So I produced this in my workshop, and I TIG welded it. It's very, very particular in terms of its scale, its relationship to value. It's 19 by 19. It's incredibly optical, and also there's like things that they're like 6 millimetre, not too particular. This 6 millimetre rod, which again sort of blocks the passage, but kind of guides the passage and just like to wherever it sits inside it. I also here have collaborated on casters. Often my work, the casters will be removed, but here I sort of reintegrated like rather custom casters. And there's a mesh where you can see through to the ground. So I mean, it's a play of negative space. It's painstakingly made and produced by myself, and then it's made to look, I guess, industrially produced with this blaze blue, which is often used in shelves and mass-produced items.
What does it kind of represent in industry?
It's often just in shelves and in cars. It's like quite a standard colour, but now it used on the most indicators. It's just commonly used. However, in this case, it's a painstakingly custom-made work, which then uses a standard colour.
Mm. And as an object that occupies space and we engage in spatially, it's a sculpture that we can walk around, we can wheel it around, which we might do a bit later.
Yes, you can wheel it around, and also you can create compositions. It has as much as that. It does have function. It is certainly a framing device that can, you can stack multiple works in and create a sculpture collaboratively with other painters, essentially.
Mm. But it doesn't have to have a painting in it. In fact, it's the purity as a sculpture exists without the painting, but like blank page anticipates writing, say, this may anticipate an object. It's suggested in the title, painting carrier. and so it is a potential which we're utilising now. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So what do you think about your painting being inside this?
Well, I just noticed that the 6mm horizontal components match absolutely into the gap that exposes the underpainting. It's a very fortunate.
Yes.
So, just in the physical thing, painting, so your work is oil paint on linen.
Very traditional.
But it has depth and it has a duration as well.
The duration embedded in the painting itself is, by its nature, I suppose painting creates an imaginative space. There's a sort of this space that the viewer brings to the painting, or also the space that I am as a painter and creating. Those are quite, so it's an open object in that sense. What was I saying?
How do you use somewhere? What do you do next?
Yeah, well, in the sense that it's not just what's painted, but it's how it's painted. So the painting unfolds itself with more considered viewing. But I was thinking about what Bonita was saying about taking industrial objects and sort of denaturing them, distilling
and distill it until it's absolutely, it's line work, it's negative space, their formal concerns, which I think we must both experience this isolation.
Yeah, I think with the sort of painting I make, I'm not necessarily interested in disentangling the entanglement between what is depicted and the essentially abstract nature of two-dimensional, like painting as an object. It's abstract. But what you were saying about the way that your sculpture sort of refines the elements is very similar to the way I think objects that I include in my painting, which become for me a range of formal input. But they're also milk crates or gas canisters or whatever, but they provide me with the opportunity to create spatial relationships between them and with the negative spaces. And so it's a sort of complicated interrelationship of image and materiality in a sense, because when you see the painting, even though it may not be particularly visible on screen, as Bonita remarked earlier on, it's quite visible. You see it. It's
very painful. Like I actually was really surprised. Like I was going up and I didn't realise that you could see some of the underpainting. And I thought that was like a real pleasure actually to see. It's a really nice kind of process, like an indicator process, and it's really enjoyable to me. It's also enjoyable to me to see the grey against the grey walls, because you've got this real warmth to your grey, which I guess is from this sort of orange where the underpainting is. So it's really interesting to see the relationship with the gallery walls here and the painting actually. And then the steel as well, which is in turn this sort of kind of not grays, light. There's a nice relationship there.
Well, your Bonita's sculpture is of course also a painting.
Yes.
So it is powder coating on stainless steel, and your background is actually in painting originally, not sculptures. Can you talk a bit about yourself as a painter and how you paint?
Yeah, I mean, I think that arguably you've got a kind of a stretcher frame here, a stretcher frame in blue. But I
Dispense with canvas.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, and then you can live historically services and all sorts of, and also other trends coming out of Europe in terms of framing and housing. But yeah, as my start in painting was really thinking very deeply about colour and colour relationships and light. And in this case, this glaze blue is really electric, and it captures the natural light of the brushes in from scale, which is kind of incredible. So yeah, I've always investigated colour, which I think places me within the painting foundation, if you like.
It's a very striking part of your sculptures is their colour. And this one, of course, not only is this really extraordinary blue, but it has these incredible castles, which are what colour are they?
They're custom. They're like a kind of a glow finish on a sort of a. They're a red wheel, but they're actually like designed to take they carry force, like the potential to actually carry force is quite large, but they're of course won't. So it's sort of
but they are 100% functional.
They're 100% functional. But I quite like the negative space on the inside. So they were quite particular in terms of the very, very particular approach.
But they are not passive. So I'm keep going this game of looking at things. It's passage. So think of Agatha's gate for the potential for passage. Your work will move through it. The work is both like an unstretched painting, it is a painting, and it's housing at the moment Jude's painting, which has another kind of aperture, which is this letting down of the guard of fiction of fictitious space, and letting you see your own painting. So you know you're seeing an image of objects, a still life, another set of objects we'll get to. And you're also letting the viewer know that it's a fiction and that you are sculpting paint.
And related to that is the fact that the painting itself is on commercially primed but it's reversed, so that the primed side is on the back side of the painting. I've done that purposely so that the sides of the painting, the stretched linen, are exposed, and the painting is visibly the skin on the front of the painting, which means on the front of the stretched object stretched canvas on object, so that it's declaring itself as a skin paint in these small ways.
So the prime layer, there's the priming that's under painting. So the red, the orange, so there is no primer. So there's
I'm thinking about that. There's a layer of primer which is exposed as white along the outer edges, and then the underpainting, which is something I've just become very attached to, probably for far too long. But that red underpainting is quite important because a lot of my work is quite cool. It comes through.
There's warmth though. When it comes to the warmth, like you pick up the warmth of that brown and put all over it.
It's absolutely. It's a very important colour.
So can you talk a bit about the colour, the underpainting?
It's a classic, very specific. Yes, it's a classic colour often used in Renaissance, etc. painting called Gothe-Snape, and it's an ochre. It's basically an Italian earth from around Siena originally. So it's a red ochre painting. And of course.
Keep talking.
Which, and it's a particularly intense, transparent version of red ochre, which just is a particular brand of paint that I became aware of that. And traditionally, it creates a sort of optical intensity when you use a cool over it. So often, for instance, if you look at some comfortable paintings, there'll be a red or an ochre of some sort of warm underpainting. And it's it adds a sort of luminosity to a sky, for instance, or something which is cool in nature, and often I'm using a cool background like a grey. It's not actually a grey, but a blue or something like that. So yeah, it's
okay. And then the painting is an image of objects as well. So can you talk a little bit about how you set up still life? Do you talk about one of your most still life paintings? And it's a very controlled.
Finding how to sort of push it, not in big ways, but in small, subtle ways. So that's one limit. I work within the limits of my still life studio. But when it comes to, and I use a certain sort of limited range of objects, which I've chosen fairly carefully to pull back from the predictabilities of the genre. So I don't necessarily choose gas canisters for that reason, but for instance, picking up a milk crate it's got a sort of a functionality which you don't necessarily associate with a domestic table scenario, which is the classic sort of genre still on subject. So, but once I've got the objects, I'm moving them around, and it's a very intuitive process, and how it looks, and more particularly how it feels. Really, I go by feeling a lot, so I don't have any rules in that regard. I set up, in fact, I suppose I set up all the limits and rules, or I think of them that way, ahead, in order to loosen up the feeling and intuition that governs the relational scenarios that I end up using in the painting.
You mentioned, and I always find it interesting when you talk about your studio, and you kind of have two studios. And you do have two studios in one place.
Yes, and the paintings travel between
two separate rooms. Can you describe the difference between the two rooms and how they function and how inevitably give out objects?
Yeah, I've got a smaller back room with particularly useful lighting configuration, so there's smaller elevated windows that I can block off or not, and and I also have a series of sort of artificial lighting scenarios that I use when I'm not using natural light. The lighting is very important, and the small room is I'm able to control look at the paintings away from the object setup. So it gives me, there's this sort of important relationship between the observational discipline I'm using when I'm painting, and then this sort of formal remembrance painting, Jude, that sort of thing. Because the observational, my training is very, very much down that line, and it can become overbearing. I need to be able to remember that it's a painting, and it sounds weird, but it's easy to forget that it's a painting. What else might it be? It might be a process we were talking about earlier, where painting, certain kinds of representation of painting is about making painting invisible. This is the old Renaissance notion of a painting being a window. So the more that you describe or get caught up on description, the more invisible the painting becomes. And I like the middle path where the painting is both itself and not itself. It's also a representation. That it's the game. It's that mid game. It's that game that the modernists were so much into in Picasso, the beginning of the 20th century, where image and materiality and fiction were balanced in this wonderful play. And we do it differently now, but it's still a really interesting concept. It's the fun of painting. Sorry, I don't know whether. Oh, the digital spaces. Yeah. So I take the painting that I'm working on now into the larger space, and I can see it in a different way, and I can see them together as well, so they relate to each other. I'm very, very fortunate to have this and this smaller space is much more about psychological engineering.
There are always multiple spaces though in the studio.
Yes.
But for me, it's not the dirty space. I mean, I think it's easy to forget that this comes from that dirty processes of like cutting the onion, whatever, and then I have to kind of take it away from also other structures in the studio, like other it has to go away from the little table because that's also a series of struts. It has to go away from the track saw because that's also got framework. So you have to remove it exactly from the studio has too much interference visually, but it's also a real touchstone for the making of it, and so you have to remove look at it outside, and also there's drilling it, brackets into the side of the house to check on the scale. So I think that separation is kind of quite important in any studio. But
absolutely, and there's that difference between it actually is exactly what we do. It's that from separation of certain elements from this industrial process. The genesis is from that place.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, also when you're speaking about colour, I do collect the colour I see on work sites and in industry and analyse it.
And in particular, like that.
Yeah.
This is sort of mucky orange. It's sort of like something off orange.
Is that in terms of the buckets or?
Oh, no, I'm thinking historically, actually from New Zealand, it was just this, actually it was a sculptor over there who painted his sculptures in this industrial orange, which was instantly recognisable. It's that colour.
Yeah, for a while, like I say, when I was living in Germany, I was looking for the perfect nicotine yellow colour. Because the interior colour of walls there, because it has so much nicotine, years of nicotine. So that colour yellow and white sometimes would pop light depending on which colour was related here. That's pretty colour to check for.
You both have a similar kind of palette, actually. You bring in similar subtleties and intensities.
The same colour, but similar obsessive.
Possibly. I certainly inherited a taste for certain industrial objects that I picked up, like canisters and forest images. I would not have used to read like that in these parts when I was painting.
So, yeah, can you both talk a bit about the selection of objects? You both choose objects to represent. Can you
Yeah, I was kind of, when I first started to speak to Jude, I was saying that on my laptop there are archives of okay. So there are, there's this, we just jokingly call it sort of industrial porn archive. It's very, very private. Of like, one foldable savings, so just all different types of warnings, brackets. I was also, as you know, very interested in barriers and scissor lifts and scissor barriers, and I was really interested in like how you could compress and contract them, and also their optical quality again comes up consistently. So there are folders on that, and then of course on brackets. So I still think it's structures for me, optical structures consistently come up. There's a quiet, I'm consistently interested in that. And lately, the brackets and carving platforms have been of interest to me, like how I would even use a wall was kind of a funny prospect for me. But I was quite interested in that placement.
A lot of those things that you've just mentioned, that you have made some of, wouldn't actually function in a way that this painting carrier does. As far as I can remember, the painting carrier is the most functional.
Yes.
You approach functionality more than ever in this work.
Yes, that's true. It is the most functional, but at the same time, I think we won't ever use it to its best function. I think it will always be aesthetic. And so the kind of choices that it is the most useful thing I've ever made. It won't ever fulfill its potential function.
So, what should we do? You want to keep going? It's very hard to know how engaged this is.
Oh, then that just fades out.
Yeah, so Jude, could you go with it?
Well, I just think in terms of Bonita's industrial fauna, I don't have anything like that.
That's a very cast off based on it.
I do to the live studio.
Oh, I like the selection is
I would say. Gosh, we all have.
Because I sort of look at things on the street. As you do. Yeah. It's no good. I was just trying to differentiate myself, but it's not anything. Because I have got a small gas canister.
You have.
But I don't go with images. I just define them on the street.
Your objects are often solids.
Yes, this milk crate is a bit of a challenge. I'm not that great for the group. But what I realised was I wasn't doing. What I was struggling with was the Western title cat, and really, just it doesn't work if you've got two eyes. It's not clear. going back to Lindsay, basically, you know, it's the single optical viewpoint which governs the classic perspectival, Victorian perspectival system, and or the one you most know and love. But it has nothing to do with immersive spatial understanding at all, which is, you know, the realm of actual three dimensions. And so I was sort of coming next morning after working on the previous day, it's not right. It's not right. Looking at the other eye or whatever. So it's a total fabrication. But you know, I think it's some sort of point of relative comfort. But yes, so I enjoy I enjoy the time with you. It's a good word. And this is
Smells really good.
And really good, so, yeah, and the same goes for my sort of finding things on the street. I have started to use for the first time, really, for a long time, living objects, or, you know, I've tried 40 flowers and fruit, obviously, but these are the sweet plants, so you find them and I like them for their toughness and happiness, and I take them bit by bit and talk to them. And they have, I find that they have a sort of formal, they lend a formal structure which is different to, you know, to my usual objects. And that's something else. It's sort of celebratory.
The thing of a single eye, a single viewing eye,
Molecular.
So that's a difference with Jude's work, which wants a moving eye.
Yes.
Two eyes.
And two feet and two legs.
Yes. Much closer to lived experience.
You understand the work by moving around. It's essential. It's quite extraordinary, the geometries which reveal as you take different viewing positions.
Because we've actually rotated it just 10 degrees, 5 degrees, with photograph to try to capture that experience, I guess. And I guess scaling that 6mm rod enhanced that feeling for me, and just kind of essential.
And it's also like a drawing in space, which reminds me again of Agnes's Gate. So a painting on the wall, just linear, a drawing, suggestive of a space you walk along it. It's a wall, it is the wall, and we are beside the wall. I'm trying to come back to the beginning, and something we can walk along and through or not through. Anyway, I think we should probably bring it home and wind it up. And we have no idea if anyone's still watching. But thank you so much for coming and for watching. Thank you for your works, and thank you, Agatha. Okay, thanks, Melbourne.
Thanks very much. Done? All right.
We'll just take this off.
Get a mute, hang on.